Got it.
Perfect. Let me just check and see if we got some people coming on.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Are we on with people yet? No, not yet.
Let's see. I'll try and follow it on my phone. So
We are
live from Pembroke Pines and Shenandoah, Virginia.
Yes. Oh, you're in Shenandoah. Okay.
Yeah, we're out at the farm. So
you're in the country house,
yes. We got a lot of snow last week, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love looking at the snow on Facebook from Florida. Yeah,
well, I
it
guess
looks beautiful.
we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
It's 1:03.
Okay.
So welcome, Rich. Rich and I are here just to share a recap of 2021, which kind of seems like a blur sometimes, but we had some amazing speakers last year, and we're excited about 2022. Rich, how was your 2021?
2021 kind of blurs in with 2020. Like those 2 years kind of like, I'm like, stuff I think was in 2021 actually happened in 2020 and vice versa. So I think those 2 years for me are going to be like 1 year. But it was amazing. I think like you said, we had some great live events with Dr. Sherry Johnson, Dr. Luis Martinez Hernandez. We talked a lot about colonial Cuba, 18th century Cuba. We talked a lot about parish records. I think we did something on Canarian immigration, which was fun. I still want to do something on Galician immigration and how to look for your Galician ancestors, which I had a lot of success with in 2020 and 2021. I'm excited to talk about that and see what your success stories were. And the best part of it is that there are some success stories on the horizon. And I've kind of set my, we're such genealogy nerds, aren't we?
Yeah.
But I've set my intention for 2022 on the success stories that I want to have. Which of those elusive ancestors do I want to find? I recently had someone. Well, are we at that part yet? No, we'll get to that part.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and tell us about your success stories in your personal genealogy, that would be super interesting.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear if we have anybody on. I can't tell if anybody's on yet, but if anybody would like to share their success stories, either you can put it in the comments or you can if you're logged on here. So I mean, it was just brought to my attention. I can't take the credit for this, but actually Sergio Medina was pouring through the Padre Sanchez collection on the Cuban Genealogy Club website. The website looks amazing. They just streamlined it in 2021. It's beautiful. If you haven't visited it, I suggest that you do. You never know what you'll find. I never thought to look in this. I knew the collection, they had just put it online, which is great. But I didn't know to look in there. Apparently, I mean, there's like all these boxes of his correspondence on there with, I want to say, hundreds of transcriptions. And Sergio Medina, who's also another one of us, a very enthusiastic genealogist, found at least 4 entries, baptismal, marriage entries in there of ancestors that I had been looking for years. That I had actually gone to Cuba and could not find. So that collection, again, and I think it was like maybe 3 ancestors that I was able to actually resolve those mysteries and take me back to Spain, right? So that jump that we all want, right? Okay, how did they get to Cuba? So those documents resolved two of those mysteries for me. And I now know that some of the relatives, my ancestors that I had been looking for in San Miguel del Padrón, that they came from Tenerife. So that was great. Actually, from El Sausal. So I know the actual place in Tenerife where they came from. So if you haven't looked at this collection, it is a veritable treasure trove. So check that out again on the Cuban Genealogy Club website. Brian, do you have any that you?
Well, in your success story, I just want to emphasize the fact that collaborating with other Cuban genealogists or your cousins, like that is so helpful. You know, the more eyes looking for something, the better. So I love that we have this collaborative spirit in our group.
Yeah, I love it too. And it's also helpful, again, if you have a relationship with that person, you trust that person to share your tree with them, because again, I've shared my tree with some people who every once in a while say, oh, you know what? I found something on this name. So collaboration, like you said, Brian, is very, very important. There's no way we can do this by ourselves. At least there's no way I can do it by myself. So very, very helpful.
It's interesting that you said you looked for these ancestors in Cuba and couldn't find them, but they were on Cuban Genealogy Club of Miami website. So you have to be open-minded and be, keep looking and look everywhere.
Yeah, and new stuff is coming up. So this actual collection, they just put up, I don't remember when, but I remember they sent the notice out. So it's only been on there a few months, I believe. So new stuff is what you think, oh, there's nothing on this or there's nothing on that. You got to keep checking, because things, archives, websites are constantly updated. So and I haven't even gone on there and looked. This is just from Sergio what he was looking for his, and he found it. I haven't even looked at it myself. So I think there's like over 20 boxes in there in that collection.
So he found it online, or he found it
on the website?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do have quite a few people following on Facebook Live. I checked on my phone, so
okay.
It's great. So I'll just tell you real quick about my success story. So I went to California so speaking of looking outside of Cuba for your Cuban family, my grandmother's nieces and nephews, there's Cubans in the LA area. So I went out in July to meet them, and it was such an amazing experience to meet people that knew my grandmother. She's been gone for 5 years, but her spirit is still out there. There's still people that have beautiful stories about her, that have pictures of her. So it was amazing. So that inspired me to share all the genealogy work that I've done. I made a binder so I can keep adding to it. So I made and I share this with them. I send them copies now, and it just has all the ancestors. It has all the pictures I've collected from each different group of cousins, and birth records and death certificates. And it helped me organize my research better, because you just have something on a computer, or a computer from 5 years ago. This was a great experience. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. I want to see that. I definitely want to copy that.
It's a lot of work, but I enjoy, like, the whole purpose of me doing my genealogy is to share these stories with anyone that will listen.
yeah, exactly. Well, fortunately, there's enough of us that will listen.
Yes.
Right?
Well, and you have some cousins on here, Rich. Dalen's on here. She's my cousin and your cousin.
Oh, okay.
We got Andres, Emily Arcia. We have all of our friends are on here. Reynaldo. Some new people. So, so I guess let's talk about 2021 real quick again. Just, we had the women's history we had a lot of different time periods, 1898 to 1940 for women's history, from my college professor, which I really enjoyed. It was a very personal experience because I got to interview my college professor. We did the movie theaters of Cuba, which kind of gives you an insight of how your ancestors would have spent their free time. Then we had 3 more amazing presentations, 2 of them on colonial Cuba, and we really need to keep revisiting those
Mhm.
topics because it's such a decade,
Yeah,
centuries of information that don't get a lot of attention.
yeah.
Sherry
Yeah, the
Johnson.
18th,
Mhm.
Sherry Johnson's 18th century colonial Cuba. She was combing those parish archives in the 90s, early 90s. So she has a lot of experience researching there. She also told us a lot about the Archivo General de Indias in Seville, which I know a lot of us want to visit. And there's a lot of information in those archives on our little pueblitos, Guanabacoa, all our like little towns in Cuba that um, we think a lot of that history is kind of, we have to go to Cuba, but there's a lot in Spain as well because a lot of the colonial records are kept in Seville. So there's a lot of detail on these towns and the people that lived in them. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But yeah, we had a lot of great presentations. Our intention, I know Brian and I we're really, really busy, but our intention is to kind of keep these going and to do these more regularly and to talk about different topics on Cuba and ways to kind of color our own family histories beyond just this document and that document, and they were born in this year and they were born in this town, a way of kind of coloring that in, because that can help. One thing that I realized the last couple of years as well is that they, our ancestors traveled to the towns surrounding the towns where they were from. So for instance, I found, I resolved a mystery by looking in another neighboring parish that I think it's my great-great-grandmother died in. So she, was from Guines all of her life, but for some weird reason, her death certificate was in San Jose de las Lajas, which, I had no record of her ever being in San Jose de las Lajas. But she was, and then vice versa. I found some marriage certificates of people who were from San Jose in Guines, right? So it's important to keep in mind that although they didn't move around a whole lot, certainly not the way we do, they did kind of get around from these, from parish to parish, or the records are kept in a certain parish for whatever reason.
Well, and there's so many things that we can explore for future presentations. For example, hurricanes. A hurricane could have taken a parish out for a year or two. So you had to move, you had to do something. There's a variety of reasons that our ancestors, our Cuban ancestors, may have had to go to a different parish for a birth or a marriage. I don't want to say death, but for all of those reasons. So we definitely would like to do more geography because that's super interesting when you seem to think they're going to be in this one little town for all of their life stories, but there's movement. So geography would be an interesting topic for 2022. Rich and I also have some other topics brewing for 2022. And if it's okay, Rich, it would be great to share our intention to do a group Spain trip to go visit is it in Seville?
Seville, yeah, we would love to go to Seville, to go to the archive there. Again, I was surprised to learn that this archive has so much on these little towns in Cuba that were more important than we tend to think. Guanabacoa, Guines were very important in Cuba at a certain point in time, and were even very prosperous. Actually, Guines was really one of the original and probably one of the most prosperous, if not the most prosperous, sugar town in Havana province. So very, very important town. In fact, I think the first railroad that was laid in Cuba, and I forget what year, but it was very early. It was before Spain had a railroad, actually, believe it or not.
Wow.
Was set from Guines to Havana, to La Habana. So that was the very first railroad in Cuba. So Guines, very, very important in Cuba's history.
But just imagine a group of us, 15 people all going to the archive together. You know,
Yeah,
I can see myself going by myself and just being a little overwhelmed. You know, first of all,
yeah,
my 15th century Spanish is not that great. So it'd be great to go as a group so we all can learn from each other and and research together. I think it would be an amazing experience. We probably have to wait to see how, you know, a couple months how the pandemic goes as far as being
yeah.
able to travel to Spain. But I think as a group, then you and I talked about doing some introductory podcasts or some live streams on basic terms that you would find. So when you go to when you go to an archive, for example, in Seville, you know what terms you know what you're looking for.
Right. So one thing I want to do, again, we're so busy, and we're about to get busier because we'll talk about that later. We're actually going back to Cuba, so that's very exciting. We're going to resume after 2 years of this kind of limbo we've been in due to the pandemic. We're going to resume our digitizing parish archives. But where was I? What was I just saying?
We were talking about archives in, you know, in Seville,
Yes,
getting
yes,
prepared for that. But can we share briefly, in those 2 years, we have been busy. We've been doing these presentations. I've been working on
yeah,
1780s index for Guinness, um,
yes. Yeah, we've been working on
for births.
indexes. Yep. And we also have some feet on the ground in Cuba, people who have been helping us also digitizing there, and also helping to transcribe indexes. And like I said, we're looking forward to going to Cuba very, very shortly. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Brian? Can
Sure.
we go
So
there?
I'm basically going to wait until Rich goes a few times just to see how it all
Oh,
goes.
thanks.
I would like to go in February on Rich's third trip, and I would like to stay at at one parish for at least a week, just to
Mhm.
help them with the records, get them familiar with how we're setting up the databases. If it's not working, that if that's not beneficial to them, and make sure that we're supporting the parishes that we've started to digitize. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting. We have about 3 to 5 kind of in the mix, correct?
Yeah, yeah, we have about 3 to 5 in the mix. And so one of the ones that we are going to be working on is Jaruco, which is another very important parish. And yes, and for different reasons. I mean, I think I may have one ancestor there, I may not. But Jaruco again was another one of those parishes that was a prosperous town at one point. And then in the War of Cuban independence in the 1890s was hard hit by the whole reconcentration, which was basically a Holocaust on Cuba during the war with Spain, where the Spanish general put everybody who lived in rural areas into concentration camps in the towns, right? The towns like Jaruco, San Jose de las Lajas, they were fortified by the Spanish. So the Spanish general Weyler sent anybody who lived in a rural area to these towns and put them in concentration camps, where many, many, many died, mostly of disease, but also because of hunger, disease. Sometimes they were killed. And it's estimated that about 300,000 to 400,000 people, when you think of what Cuba's population was at the time, I think its population was only less than 2 million for sure, maybe 1.5 million. When you think about that, those numbers are just crazy. So there haven't been a whole lot of studies done on that, again, because a lot of this information is missing, but going to these death records in a lot of these parishes really helps to kind of understand that period a little better. That's just one of the projects and uses of this that I see outside of just doing, who my ancestor was, or who this person's ancestor was. So we are looking forward to digitizing parishes very, very soon. Like I said, Jaruco is going to be probably our first one. And we are also looking forward to, it's very possible that we might be able to publish the indexes. So we're, looking at doing that. That would be, first of all, very beneficial for the Cuban church because it could streamline their having to look for the records, right? A lot of these archives are in disarray. It's very hard for them. A lot of them don't have indexes. So that's the other thing. A lot of these books don't have indexes. So when you call asking for a record, the archivist there has no, there aren't indexes a lot of the time. So how do they look for your record? So we've been helping them transcribe their indexes digitally. Even when they have indexes, we put them on a digital format. And when they haven't had an index, we have gone through every page to try to help them build an index. And that is key because that, if you have that information, at least where your ancestor is there, and you can request that ancestor using that book number, that folio, that number of the entry. You can contact that church and then actually request the document. You have a good idea where, when and where your ancestor was born. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing in 2022.
That's super helpful, and that is such good news because I have, we all have ancestors in the 1800s. We don't know their birth year, but to be able to have an index where we could quickly go through to locate them, over a 20-year period, that's going to be so helpful because a lot of places are not going to help you unless you have that birth year for a cemetery record or a birth record. They just don't have the capacity to just look through 5 books looking for your ancestors. So that's amazing news, and it would be so helpful for people looking for their ancestors to be able to narrow it down to a year in a book. So that would be amazing. So I'm super excited about that. So we talked about the digitizing. We do a lot of things behind the scenes, trying to make things happen. So it's a complicated this is a complicated project, but we have so much passion for it. Rich has so much passion for it. I'm super excited. I will go to a parish even if my ancestor never even went near there, because I know the importance of having these. This is our Cuban heritage, and it's, we don't want that to slip away. So
yeah, exactly. And talking about going back to Haruko for one minute, the priest there is actually very interested in digitizing because these records are very, very deteriorated. So the priest is aware that these records are going to disappear, and that would truly be a shame if that happened. So we're looking forward to getting there very soon.
And not all priests are aware of what they even have. Or we were in a parish. Do you remember? And the priest was like, "You mean?" He's like, "You mean back in the day they used to separate the Pardos y Morenos and the Españoles?" So it was, they kind of lost some of that background as well. So this is, it's a win-win, and I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I have a few comments just to say. So Emily just mentioned that under COVID times that they're not letting large groups in. We're not, we're definitely it's gonna be safe, and it's gonna be, hopefully, it could be 2023. I would need time to plan for a trip like this, and even if we go as a small group first and then a bigger group, we can always go every year, every 1 or 2 years. So someone asked about placetas, which is my family's home.
That's all you. Yeah.
I've had very much success getting birth records, marriage records out of it's San Atanasio. That's my family's parish there. And I'm talking like the mid 1800s. So if you want to follow our page or send us an email or send us a direct message, I could talk about placetas all day long. So
I just saw a message from Emily. She sent earlier that's asking what collection, Reverend Sanchez. It's Father Sanchez. Yes, and his collection is on the Cuban Genealogy Club website.
Perfect. So we are at about 1:27. So let's see if there's any other questions. we did a little recap of some exciting topics we had last year. And Rich, we would love to invite some of those same speakers to come back in 2022. We're looking, Rich and I are looking at maybe doing some geography presentations on surnames. You know, if you have a common surname or a rare surname, there's a lot of challenges with that. You know, if you're a Martinez, or if you have some really rare name, you know, so we would like to share some of success stories on how to get around some of those issues. So. Oh, and Marelis, she's in here. Any other questions from Facebook Live? We wanted to keep today's conversation just kind of brief and review what we did last year. Like Rich said, 2020 and 2021 kind of merged together. So it's,
Yeah.
we had a lot of successes. I had a lot of successes in my personal.
Yeah.
Totally excited. So 2022 is going to be a new direction. If there's anybody listening that would like to be a volunteer, I did put the fundraiser link on our Facebook page. There's other ways to volunteer with indexing or helping us with other things. You could be on the board, you know, with the group. So many exciting things. So, and I want to thank everyone for participating in the fundraisers in 2021 when we couldn't, you know, we couldn't go to Cuba and do that physical work. We were still getting data. We were still making things happen, but we appreciate everyone sticking through our project for the last 18 months. And we're only gonna get better in 2022. So it's a good challenge to have.
Yes, very excited.
Oh, the church in Placetas is San Atanasio, Saint. I don't even know what the English equivalent is of Atanasio.
I don't think there is.
Oh,
I think it's one of those that no translation.
Rich,
Harupa.
have you heard of Aguada de Pasajeros in Las Villas?
Yes, that's in. Oh, is it? I thought it was in Matanzas. Yeah, so it must be kind of in that border region. Yeah. Who somebody wrote about that?
Yeah, Maricel asked about. Well, and you know, sometimes the provinces change a little, so we would love to have a presentation on that. So.
Yeah. Oh, and another one of our intentions, again, setting that intention for 2022, is to build a larger team in Cuba that can help us digitize. So it's not so it can the whole project can move faster. Because as you know, one of those archives, one little church can have lots and lots of books, you know, lots and lots of parish books.
And the books are not in the best shape. So there's an urgency for us. So to try and get these, you know, in a digital format as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Let me see. We've already had some people volunteer, so I'm super excited about that. Oh, Atanasio. So I'll put that. So with the parish in San Atanasio, that's there's a group of French priests. I think four French priests are at that parish, and I believe it's all digitized. That's why it was so easy for me to get those records. So. So I mean, I got those records like in a week. Like that's amazing for being, you know, during a pandemic for me to be in Washington D.C. and to get those records from that little tiny town Placetas, you know. But that's the importance of those digitizing, and it's got to start with those indexes.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't know what's there, it's very difficult to look for.
Yeah, they're basically lost. So Maricel, want to know, how would you find out the name of that parish in Aguada de Pasajeros? So we can, you know, that's a good point. So Rich, we could add to the website. I have a whole list of parish names in those in those small little towns. And you have to keep in mind that what one priest may be the priest for like two or three little towns in that area. So it's
Right.
not as easy. It's not just easy to say, oh, that little town has this one parish. That's the only place that record would be. So
Right, exactly. A lot of times that, a priest will be in charge of several, not just two, but sometimes several parishes. And so the records may float back and forth. I'm looking to see now what the name of the parish is in Nahuatl Pasajeros. I'm not sure. I can't see it.
we can look that up and then maybe do a post on. Okay, so Esther says, how do you access them? I need a birth date. I didn't have a birth date. So that's what's amazing. This is a 2020 success story, not a 2021 success story, but I have maybe 15 records that I got from Placetas, and I knew 8 of those, and 8 of them I did not know. I was just saying, I'm looking for the descendants of these 2 people, and I got six records of people in our family tree that my current family members didn't know the names, or they knew nicknames.
Wow.
Cheo, these Cuban nicknames are, some relatives never knew their real name. They just always called them,
Yeah.
by their nickname.
I love, by the way, that kind of an archivist where you give them a name or something, and you don't have a whole lot of information, and they'll actually find other relatives, and they're like, oh, by the way, I found these who are maybe related. That's great when they do that. They don't always do that. When they do that, it's a good thing.
Yeah, if they have notes in the margins, I don't remember how to say that in Spanish, but it was like they would tell me this ancestor and who they married, and put the date in there. Like
No.
that's amazing. It's all about digitizing, and it's all from an index. So, I'll put our email address in here. Anybody that has a question or wants to follow up with us.
Also, Mairelis also says that for those of us who are looking for wills or testamentos, a lot of those are located again in the Father Sanchez collection. And I know Mairelis, who I think is on, has looked at the Father Sanchez collection and has found some ancestors there as well. So again, it's a great collection.
Yes, and I want to remind everyone that you need to join the Cuban Genealogy Club of Miami. They have amazing programming. That website, that's ourancestry.com.
Yeah. And they're constantly updating it. Again, they updated it last year, and the website looks amazing, and they've added a lot of other collections on there.
Well, do you remember when we were meeting with Dr. Sherry Johnson that she had some old Havana marriage records?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, feel free to post those on your website. So that's amazing. You can't just go to a website at one period of time, and if you don't find your family, you just have to go back a couple months later. You have to keep revisiting all those archives or databases. You never know when something's going to pop up, whether it's DLOC, Cuban Miami, PADES, Ancestry.com, Family Tree. I'm sorry, Family Search. All those things are constantly changing, and sometimes they're improving their software that's reading some of these old documents. So,
absolutely.
Okay, let's do our final 2 minutes and see if anyone has any final questions. I put our email address in there. If you have any questions, we don't have the answer. We can certainly look that up or ask someone else. Well, I want to thank you, Rich, for all that you do. There's no, like you said, there's no way any one of us could do this on our own. We, as a collective effort, we're going to get so much further, so much quicker.
Yeah, and thank you for putting all this together. I mean, that's not something I could do. Is kind of put this all together, and we collaborate with all of you. All of the names I saw on here today at some point or another, I've collaborated with. Denis, Emily, Dailene, and I think they're all kind of cousins. So, right? I know Dailene and I are, we've said this many times, I think third cousins. So we're kind of, it's not too far off. I know Denis and I are cousins as well. So yeah, very exciting. We couldn't do this without all of you and without all of your constant support and like just your enthusiasm. It keeps us going. It keeps the project going. So that's very important too. And we're looking forward to, again, a great year. We'll keep you updated and let you know what's going on.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.